Hello and welcome to the True Man podcast, the podcast designed to create a generation of self-defined men. Today, I'm joined by Tiarnan McCarthy, the founder of Redefining the Alpha. Tiarnan, how are you doing?
How you doing, Liz? Pleasure to be on. Thanks for inviting me on.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to this one. We had a really good pre-podcast chat, so a little bit of pre-warning. I think we're going to get into some meaty topics today that I'm sort of really looking forward to. But as always, first question, in your own words, what makes you a man?
A man is a flawed human being like anybody else. I think what makes you a man in terms of characteristics, in my opinion, someone that carries himself well, someone that treats others well, someone that values his family, values the right things, values himself, someone who has some kind of emotional literacy or understanding of their own behaviour, understanding of their own emotional patterns, and someone who isn't afraid to speak up for what's right. In my opinion, that's the characteristics of good characteristics of a man. Someone who works hard, but also has grace with himself, and also in terms of what makes you a man, we're very big into labels nowadays, and I think when we get into that question, everyone will have a different answer, but it really boils down to a couple of things. What's your values, and I think that's the answer to that. So that's my opinion of what a man is, but I think everyone will have a different opinion of that.
No, for sure. I think that's the powerful side of that question is the you part. I think it's a question that's not asked a lot. I think it's a question that men don't really think about. I think, which we'll sort of get on into in a second, is this sort of you're either an alpha or you're not, and it's sort of like what is that self-definition of it, right? Like what is the idea of your view on it? And I think it can be whatever you want it to be. And I'm asking it as many times as I can so that people start asking it themselves, asking other people and asking themselves it regularly as well. Elephant in the room, redefining the alpha. Where did the name come from?
It always is. It always is, mate. Everyone. That's kind of why. It isn't. I'm a liar. It isn't why I chose it, but it's why I chose not to change it, because it was getting that reaction, and I was like. So when I first designed Redefining the Alpha, it's because my coaching service was called Alpha Male Coaching, but I never knew the social media construct of the word alpha existed. I thought the word alpha meant leader, like alpha in a wolf pack, and that interested me, and I loved the wolf logo. It was pretty cool, and I thought, you know what, Alpha Male Coaching's my new niche, because I love coaching men. I love working with men, especially, men who are similar to where I was 10 years ago, low confidence, and really want to change their life and look at the three pillars of their life: their mental, their physical, and their relationships. And that's why I designed Alpha Male Coaching, because to me, an alpha is a leader, and a leader leads himself on a daily basis. A leader isn't a CEO, an entrepreneur, self-employed, or some kind of high up businessman. A leader is someone who leads their life the right way, and with the right values, with integrity, through their actions. And in order to lead other people, you should be able to lead yourself first, and that is the ultimate rule I have, and that is what I would call an alpha male. But then this social media construct of it came about, and I sort of clicked on, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to change it, but I am going to start redefining the alpha, which is why you call it Redefining the Alpha.
Yeah, it's claiming it back, right? It's not redefining it in as such, but yeah, redefining it in a way that sort of aligns. One of the things that I would like to sort of touch on is I'm really big in sort of the sentence "meeting men where they are," which is sort of alluding to talking on their level, right? So using that terminology must really work with the kind of people that you're dealing with. and the kind of people that are, like you say, similar to you a few years ago? Are you finding that using different words gets different men in the room?
Your language is so important. Your language is so important. The words that you use are vital, um, because it just takes one wrong sentence, one wrong word to completely lose trust in the men, and not just the men, in people in general, um, to change their perspective of it. And that's why you have to be so careful with your language. Yeah, I think even the word toxic masculinity, um, is a very what would you call it, a divisive word. As soon as it's mentioned, you've got one side and the other side. Um, I don't tell men that this is going to fix their life, because it's not, but it's going to give them a starting point in order to understand themselves, so they can start making choices to fix their life, to make it go in the direction that they want to go. And I think that's what we're missing as well from society nowadays, is we've got almost a generation of fixers and snake oil salesmen that kind of promise the world and promise that they can fix you and promise that they can help you and all the rest of it. And that's just not true. The basis of coaching, the basis of mental health events like I do is about helping you to understand yourself and helping you to reflect on the hard questions, because only you can answer them hard questions. So my language when I'm promoting the events and when I'm promoting the workshops is always about, this is to help you to understand you. It's not about me. I don't know you. I don't have a clue who you are. I don't know anything about what's happening in your life. But all I know is that there's very simple, hard questions that you need to ask yourself in order to progress further in your life. And until you answer them hard questions, you're going to stay where you are. And if you don't want to stay where you are, then come along. If you do, then don't.
We that sort of alpha define that traditional alpha, as you sort of alluded to, and that taken social media alpha, which is a lot of these courses and a lot of these things around that. What do you think is missing for men that means that they are attracted to that sort of idea, this sort of idea of these quick fixes?
I think what's missing for men is the balance. And what I mean by the balance is the balancing of the softness and the hardness. And what I mean by that is, you've got one side of the coin, which is all hustle culture, and then you've got the other side of the coin, which is all soft, mindfulness kind of stuff. And it's very airy fairy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It works for some people, especially with women. It works very well. They tend to enjoy it. All the wellness space is what I call it. And I found, for me, growing up in the gym space, there was no balance. I love personal development. I love journaling. I love breath work. I love things like that. But I also love really hard training, and I love combat sport. I love trying out things like boxing, jiu-jitsu, etc. I love those things. So where do I find a balance? And that's kind of what alpha male coaching and redefining the alpha is about striking that balance. But what I think is missing as well for men is understanding. And what I mean by that is understanding of, we are different than women as such, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like that's okay. I think people need to be reminded sometimes that it's okay to be, it's kind of, I'm trying to be careful as well here with my language, but it's kind of ironic that we're in this generation of everyone being accepting of each other, and titles and pronouns and all the rest of it, but yet it's not acceptable to say that you're different because you're a man. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. What do you think has happened to masculinity? Why do you think it's been given such a bad rap?
Technology would be a start. I think the fact that we've got access to so much information, and it's all within the reach of our hand. I think what you consume online, what you consume on social media, has a massive part to do with it, especially for the younger generation, considering that the younger generation are so exposed to it so early. I think there's a lack of male role models too, a massive lack of male role models. I think as well we have massive scarcity when in the UK and in Ireland economically, and what happens there is when you've got scarcity. So what that means basically low money. There's no money in the economy. It's pretty poor. You know, there's jobs being lost. There is wage cuts. There's inflation. You know, rent through the roof. Housing prices are up. When that happens, it's got a knock-on effect. And what the knock-on effect is men become more distant, more isolated because they carry the pressure of trying to fix that, of trying to fix problems that they can't possibly fix because it's out of their control. And that can cause a distance in the household. So, for example, fathers may take on more jobs, may take on more work, so they're not as present at home. I think fatherless homes is a big one too. I think there's so many reasons why it's happening. I don't think there's one pinpoint reason, but if I was to say what's the biggest, I would definitely say social media plays the biggest part in it.
Yeah, it's such a fact. Like you said it before, you just sort of got to choose your words carefully. I think for me, what I've found is I think the rise of feminism and the idea of encouraging women into STEM and getting equality of pay and all those things, which was much needed in society, has not been thought about what that means to boys and young men. No one sort of had that conversation with them. So you're pushing girls into roles that were primarily taken by men. And like you say,
Yeah,
in some of these places there's already a scarcity. So all of a sudden 10 competitors for a job becomes 20 because it's now lifted up with female applicants as well. And that puts other pressures on, and it sort of you sort of loss of power almost, and it's sort of changing where you want to go.
I think as well the feminine movement. My grandmother, she was a massive part of the feminine movement over here in Belfast during the Troubles, and you know, I come from a long line of activists in my family who are very, very outspoken, um, very active in that sense of protest, of strikes. I come from a union family in the hospital, and we're not afraid to speak up when something's not right. And I found that in the feminine movement, what's happened is you've got splinter groups. So it happens in every movement. You know, there's always splinter groups. There's branches that break off and say, "Oh no, I don't like this policy, so I want to go this way. I don't like the way you're wording this, so I'm going to go this way." And then you've got extremities. And what happens then as well is you've got breakaways from the LGBTQ plus community. There's so many breakaways there. I think they're all getting, you know, which rightly so, by the way, you know, rightly so. They're getting their rights and they're getting policies in their favour to aid their their ability to feel comfortable in society, whatever it may be, whatever they're looking for, you know, fair rights, which is completely fine, no issues with that. But their version of femininity, of whatever it is they want to call themselves, is being rewritten and it's been established and it's been empowered, whereas men's has been almost pulled back and not rewritten. It's just been scrapped, and there's been no script given. There's been no guidance given. It's just shut up, get on with it, start making money, get your qualifications, buy that house, and look after your wife. You know, and that's the truth.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it's not been rewritten. It needs to be rewritten as well. And I think it's hopefully with people like yourself and myself, the new wave activists in the men's space, if you will, we can start to shift that needle a little bit as well. But I guess one sort of question that you've alluded to is obviously growing up in Belfast, very very traditional. I would say like it's very traditional sort of households and that side of things. How does how does someone like yourself find this balance that you talk about now? Where did that sort of all come into?
Mate, to be honest with you, if I'm going to be completely transparent, a lot of pain and a lot of uh, self awareness. I grew up quite self aware, and I was always kind of aware of that my emotions were very up and down a lot. Since I was a kid, my emotions were always, my mom told me that I used to laugh hysterically at the TV, at like a TV show, and then start crying hysterically for an hour, and then laugh again, all in the same time frame. So I was very emotionally dysregulated from a young age, but I always had self awareness, and I was always kind of aware of that, and I had it for a long time, and I was always prone to panic attacks. I grew up in a pretty rough area, but I knew that in order to stay safe, I couldn't show that side of me in the area because it would have portrayed weakness. But I grew up in a very loving household. My mum is amazing. I love her to bits. My dad, he's amazing too. Love him to bits. They're amazing people. But when I was young, they were very young when they had me, and they were kind of navigating life just like any other 18, 19-year-old. West Belfast was kind of coming to the end of the troubles. I grew up in a very masculine household, but I was always very self-aware. But I got to a stage in my life where I lost a lot of friends to suicide. There was a lot of things that happened in my life. My mum was always a big believer in God, and so was I. So I was always quite self-aware, and I was big into prayer. I just hit breaking point. I actually hit breaking point when I went to Australia. I moved to Australia for 2 years, and I went to Sydney. I was on my own during COVID, and I kind of had a breaking moment where it just emotionally I just couldn't take it anymore. All the grief, all the pain, hiding everything I've hidden my whole life, not being authentic, all just like hit me at once, and I was just cried for about 2 hours, and it was the best feeling ever, just to let it out. And then when I got home, obviously more problems came because I was back in that environment.
Yeah.
So when I came home from Australia, I was back into that environment. So all that kind of personal development work that I did when I was in Australia after that breaking point which I thought was a breakthrough, ended up slapping me in the face again because I was straight back into old habits, straight back into drinking, straight back into drugs, straight back into hiding myself in a shell. And I've always wanted to be a coach. I've coached since I was 17. I've always wanted to put myself out there, get on podcasts, speak on camera, do events, speak in front of people, coach men, help people. It's always been what I want to do. And I was too afraid to show that side of me because it wasn't normal in the place that I grew up. And I knew that there would be judgment, there would be resentment, and to me it wasn't safe to have that. So I had another breakthrough about 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, and I realised I was hiding myself again. So that's why I created Alpha Male Coaching and Redefining the Alpha, because I believe that men, especially in deprived areas, hide themselves at the fear of not being safe. One thing I said in my first podcast as well, I've done a solo podcast recently, and I said that growing up where I grew up, safety was in fear. It wasn't in love. To be loved it wasn't a natural thing. It was, you need to be feared. And how do you be feared? You'd be feared by your status in terms of your crime that you can commit, in terms of the drugs you can sell, in terms of how you can fight. And that is, for me, a very sad existence. And I realised that quickly, and Redefining the Alpha is there to kind of change that, because I had to change that way as well.
Yeah, I find a lot in low social economic areas that traditional gender roles sort of hold firm. So man goes out to work, woman stays home and raises the kids. Usually from a cost point of view, childcare is so expensive, it makes 0 cents for mum to go out and work minimum wage or just a little bit more over minimum wage, and then it all to go into childcare. Which then creates new pressures anyway, because if you look at sort of these sort of metros and you look at these where both partners are earning, all of a sudden that creates a bigger divide in sort of that, and really starts to create an isolation for those kind of men, right? It really starts to make them lonely because they are becoming a rare breed almost. And if they don't want to do that, that must really put some additional pressure on their shoulders as well, right?
I think men need to have a bit more humility and a bit more understanding of why is that the case. My partner earns more money than me. My partner's a teacher. I'm self-employed. There's months where she makes more money. There's months where I make more money, and that's okay. But I'm doing what I enjoy doing, and it's aligned with my values, and it's aligned with what I like to do, and she's doing what she likes doing. If I was to start to develop that attitude of she shouldn't be making more money than me, I need to up my game, it would create a very toxic relationship. It would also create a lot of resentment in me. And the thing that men need to realize as well about this, right, which is important, because I've had comments and stuff recently of men saying, oh, my partner betrayed me, whatever, blah, 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 all these things that have happened. If you start to allow resentment, you start to allow hate, you start to allow anger and all these things to consume you, it will eventually kill you. Like, stress is the biggest killer next to suicide, in my opinion. You know, that stress of carrying that, you know, pressure of, oh, I need to be making more money, I need to be, who told you that? Where does that come from?
Yeah.
And once you ask yourself the hard question of why am I behaving this way, or why is my attitude this way, and be really honest with yourself and reflect on it, you'll never feel at peace. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I had this conversation the other day with a guy who's working in this space, but maybe more on the left side, shall we say, compared to maybe what you and I are sort of looking at. And we were talking about status, and I was basically saying to him that the problem isn't that these boys want to earn more money or they want to be more famous, is that they don't understand that there's different statuses. So as you've said, you there yourself, you are working in a space that you feel passionate about. It keeps you alive. You are very motivated within it. I'm the same. It's like that in itself is a status, is that you're driving towards a bigger goal that you've now created yourself. You're in a space that's your own, and it's quite hard to compete against other people when you've made it yourself, right? It's pretty easy to be number one when you've made your space.
True. That's why I'm only joking. No, I think men, when a man can't find meaning, he replaces it with pleasure, and that's what's happening. And pleasure is in fame, validation, you know, viral TikToks, viral videos, people telling you that they love your work, people telling you that they like you. You know, for me, that was 100% what my values were when I was growing up, because I developed. When you're young, when you're a teenager, you're like a sponge almost. You kind of, what you consume, you start to really absorb, and you can end up absorbing other people's values and other people's goals. So I'll give you an example. There's a lot of coaches now, and in terms of like PTs, etc. Now I'm not speaking for all of them, but what I will say is this: is a lot of that comes from absorbing content from coaches, which may be a good or bad thing. But the problem is that there's a lot of coaches that get into it thinking that it's this amazing space where you get loads of followers, you get loads of likes, you get loads of clients. So easy, you don't really do fuck all work. You work 2 hours a week and you just train in the gym all the time. It is not like that at all. And when they quickly realize that, they start to go, oh fuck, I don't really want to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, what made you think that you wanted to do it? And they say, oh, I love helping people, I love the gym. And I'm like, bullshit. You've seen someone online and you want to reflect the fame and the notoriety that they get because you see that as people liking me and me getting validation, me becoming part of the trade, and I want to be part of the trade because I'm so fucking sick of living the way I'm living. And that is, and that's not all men, but a lot of them that get into that space or get into even jobs or get into careers or get into like sports. A lot of reason why they do it is because they don't want to be left out. And yeah, that's my answer to that. When you've no meaning, when you've no real values, you replace it with pleasure. And what is pleasure? Pleasure is what I just said, getting that validation. It can be drink. It doesn't have to just be. When I say that, people think automatically drinking drugs because that's pleasure, but it's not always like that. Pleasure can come in many forms. For example, working your balls off can be pleasure, as in, being known as the guy who never stops working, being known as the busybody, being known as the one who has followers, being known as the one who has loads of comments and viral TikToks. So yeah, that's the problem nowadays. Is there's a lack of purpose and meaning in men's lives, and there's more pleasure.
Yeah, I think just to sort of add on that, I think you get like the Joker as well, the guy who always plays the Joker. You hear countless stories of men who've committed suicide. Is like he was the life and soul of the party. It's all an act. It was all an act.
It's called blending in, and I've witnessed it. A few of my friends that committed suicide were the jokers and were the drinkers, and they were the ones who were, I met two of them the night before they killed themselves, and they were both on a drink, and they were both very happy, telling everyone they love them, and they were, having a laugh. But that's also a different conversation because that is actually the point where they've decided, I'm going to do this. So that's a bit different because it's almost like a euphoric feeling that all my problems are going to go away, so I can feel happy now, But you're right. It's a mask, and I wore a mask for 26 years. So yeah, you're right.
Big question. How do we make men more self-aware then?
You can't make men anything. You can just show through your actions the way you carry yourself. A leader carries himself first, and people reflect that, and people will reflect what you portray. So if you're trying to make anyone anything, forget about it. Focus on yourself, and and give value, give information on based off of what you've learned and what you know. But don't try to make anyone anything. A lot of the times when I go into the schools, or if I'm going into the schools, they ask me like, "What are you going to teach them? What are you going to make them do?" Like nothing. They just need to be listened to. They just need to be understood, and they need to see me for who I am, so they can reflect that and go, well, they'll reflect what way I behave. They'll not reflect what I tell them to do. Does that make sense? And I think all men are like that. So how do we make men um, more better, more more comfortable in their own skin? We portray that in our actions, and we try to create a space that's safe as well. More safe spaces for men would be great. Like Redefining the Alpha, the events, they're very safe spaces where men can come and they can listen or they can speak, ask questions. The safe space is so important because, like, listen, if you don't feel safe enough to express what you feel or safe enough to cry, you're not going to. But just because you slap a billboard up in the middle of the fucking motorway and say men cry too, doesn't mean that all men are going to go, oh fuck, that's right, and just start crying. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like they need to feel safe. They need to see that other people are reflecting those actions, and they need to respect you as a leader in order to follow.
It's interesting. It's a really interesting take on it. I'm processing it. I kind of like it. I like the idea. Essentially, lead by example, right? And they shall follow. How how do you think you get men? Do men have to go through hard stuff to be enlightened? It's probably like I'm sitting here and you're sitting there, and we're both sharing stories. And to be honest with you, both of our stories are quite dark. Really, there's a lot of depth to them. We both went through essentially breakdowns that got us turned round. And as much as fun as it was bouncing from the bottom, a lot of men don't sort of bounce back up. And it'd be interesting to get your take on that. Is there a way of catching them on the way down?
I think it's about reframing problems, and what I mean by that is, I think we need to teach men early on that having problems is a necessary part of life and a part of growth. And if you view it that way, then any problem that comes your way, you'll be able to handle with grace, and also a bit more understanding and support of men going through problems, you know, and making them feel safe enough to share the problem. The reframing of problems, I used to see problems like an obstacle, as like a blockade in front of me that was stopping me from getting to where I wanted to be. The problems are opportunities for growth. The more problems you have, happy days, you have more opportunities to grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you can reframe it that way, if you can reframe your mind and the way it thinks, there's it. I've learned something recently, right? I used to blame, even the past 6 months, me and my partner were expecting a baby girl in May, and we're having a baby girl in May, and we were looking for a house, and it's been hard to find somewhere. It's been very hard, and I hit a point where I was like blaming the economy, I was blaming the housing market, I was blaming politicians, I was blaming everyone. I was going, fuck this, this is fucking bullshit, and I was like, fucking, just, my brain was dissolving, and that was because I give power to a problem. So when you have a problem, do not give power to that problem, because if you give power to that problem, it has power over you. You need to have power over it, and simple reframing of the problem, reframing of your way of approaching it is enough. How do you do that? In my opinion, the first thing you should do is look at your environment, look at your physical state. Are you looking after yourself? And look at your mental state. Are you asking them hard questions? So that's my opinion on that. When it comes to people who have been through, you know, dark places, how can we catch men when they're going through those dark places? Let them know that it's okay to be in that dark place, and that it is great. It's an opportunity to grow. If you're listening to this now and you're in a really dark place, this is your opportunity to grow. And you may not see it that way, but you're going to need to reflect on it. Change your physical state. Go for a run. Go to the gym. Join a fucking jiu-jitsu club. Whatever you want to do. Start changing your physical state. Ask the hard questions. Look at the relationships in your life. Look at the people you're surrounded by. Look at where you are. Where are you most of the time? What are you consuming online? Look at all those things. Start doing a bit of a clear out in your head, and then you'll be able to be in a better mind frame to approach the problem as an opportunity to grow. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, they are right. I think it's just getting to that reframe, and I've said this pretty much from day one, because it was sort of the stance that I took. Is that I believe that men should be more selfish. I think men should be more selfish with themselves. It doesn't mean be a dick. It doesn't mean be that guy that's mine. But I think most men are so far the other side that just being a little bit more selfish. So like you say, taking some time to go for a run, a walk, a hike, the gym, whatever it might be, to take a bit of self-time to write everything down and say, I don't like this, I like this. This relationship, probably, am I meant to see this through? Is that where I'm going? Is it like, am I holding on for fear of failure of a relationship? So yeah, I think there's times to walk away and there's times to change and there's things that you need to do and that
This is
all
so
stuff. Sorry.
sorry. This is so important because I was talking about this yesterday to a woman who is a trauma informed therapist at an event I was at. So someone had said to me at the event beforehand, "Oh, you're having your daughter in May. You know, that's going to be the most important thing in your life." And I'm like, "No, I am. I'm the most important thing." Beforehand, my values were me and my relationships, my partner, etc., and my business. Okay, they were important values to me. My family, my relationships, myself, my business, and now my daughter is just added on to that list, but she is second to me. You know what I mean? So I would dare say that my values are myself, my relationship, my daughter. So that is so important that you do that because this is the thing, right? If you are selfish, what you are showing is that you have the power to lead yourself. And if you are selfish, you're showing the power to lead yourself with integrity, with good values. That is not the selfish that you're thinking of. So we could reframe the word selfish, as you said. Selfish is self care. You're looking after yourself. And if your daughter, your son, whoever it is that's watching you, young men that you teach, if they see that you are prioritizing you, then they'll think, oh fuck, well maybe it's okay to actually prioritize you. Because the one thing that a lot of people in the men's space and wellness space and all the rest of it get wrong, which I've got wrong in the past, is they pour all of their energy, all of it into the work they do. I'm trying to help people. No, but you are betraying a terrible message because I can see that it's killing you
Yeah.
trying to do this. And what kind of sort of influence is that putting onto the people that are watching you? What they are seeing is someone killing themselves for other people, but what they should be seeing is someone who fills their cup and starts pouring gently into other people's because they have the integrity and the values to do that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's not a balance, but people might see it as a balance or a compromise. And it I think once you get used to doing it, so this sort of idea of self love first or self care, it amplifies everything that you've already been doing anyway. So like what was a list of jobs that you were dreading, for example, fixing a gate or, painting the fences, of all of a sudden will be on your to-do list. You'll be buzzing and you can't wait to get the creosote out and get cracking on it. And you'll be making your partner significantly happier than you were when you were focusing on solely making your partner happy.
Yeah, it's compromise too. It's like, and that's the thing too, is like your values will change constantly. Because you could just shift them and say priorities. What are your priorities? You know, and your priorities change. I have seasons in life where work is the most important thing. I have seasons where training is. I have seasons where it's all about home. Stuff's going on. Like at the minute, I'm in a season. I'm in a bit of a weird season, because I'm kind of like the business. Redefining the Alpha is really needed and it's being pushed and there's a demand for it. But at the same time, my partner's pregnant, Lauren's pregnant, expecting, and we've got, you know, a time frame to get into a house. We've got a time frame to, you know, just get organised for the baby coming and just be there for her to help her with things that she needs done. And it's balancing that, and then of course looking after myself, which is priority. So yeah, seasons is important to understand, and that your values will shift and they'll change. And I think as well, men kind of need permission to say sometimes, I can't do this. As in, you know, what, I've been doing too much. Can't do this. Just want it. I'm cancelling the meeting today.
Yeah.
I'm cancelling the podcast.
Yeah. I really like the Jesse Itzler approach to this, which is if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a no. And if you really are getting to a plate full of stuff, then it is. If you're not absolutely excited to be there, then sorry, it's a
Yeah,
no this time.
yeah. No,
Which,
it's 100%. It's just priorities, isn't it? It's just priorities, and I think men need to start maybe looking at where their priorities lie, where their values lie. You know, a lot of men say they value themselves, but yet they'll spend more money in a bar than they will on a self help course or a personal development course. You know, or a coach or whatever it may be. Um, you just saying your values isn't enough. You need to reflect that in your actions, and that's important as well. People need to understand that. Do you know why? In my opinion, this is why a lot of men hate themselves, and this is why a lot of men speak to themselves the way they speak to themselves, and the way and treat themselves the way they treat themselves, is because they say they have values on one thing, but betray the other. And what I mean by that is they don't keep their word to themselves. They say they value themselves, but yet they drink and take drugs every weekend. They say they value their family, but yet they're constantly out talking shit about their wife. They're constantly out talking shit about their kids. They say they value their health, but yet they're constantly eating junk food. They're never sticking to their diet. So if you're constantly doing that, self worth, your self esteem is just going to be shot. What do you expect? Do you expect to love yourself? Do you expect to speak to yourself in a nice way? How could you? You're not portraying that in your actions. Self love isn't an adjective. It's a verb. No, it's a do. You do it. You don't. You don't just say it. You don't say, "Oh, I love myself and I value this and I value that." Bullshit. Like, show me.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, I think that internal conflict is huge for a lot of men. Right, it's just this idea of wanting one thing and having or doing another. Having is more rare than the other, but yeah, it definitely is for sure. One thing that I really want to touch on, just sort of, is
Mm-hmm.
working out and sort of betterment of man, if you will, when it's taken to extremes. So we've seen, for example, the chap who ran across Australia, that was deemed as toxic, pushing himself to that. How do you balance pushing yourself physically with also wanting to grow in other areas as well? Because I think it is very easy to replace one dopamine source with another. So drugs or drink for just going as hard as physically possible in the gym, right?
I've kind of got mixed opinions on it. You know, listen, it's you should want to push yourself physically to your limits if it's aligned with the values that you have and the priorities you have in your life. You know, but you should always have some kind of physical health. But when it's taken to extremes, I completely understand, and I think extremes are sexy now, and that is why they're being pushed so much. Pros and there's cons. Listen, there's pros in the sense where we've got people doing amazing things, inspiring people, setting records. They're raising money for charity. They're paving the way for young men as well. They're good role models too, to a degree. But when does it become extreme in terms of destructive? It's when it becomes destructive. When for example, you haven't seen your daughter and your wife in 3 weeks because you've been going to the gym. It's like, that's not good. That's not aligned with your values. So maybe tailor that back and find a structure that suits, you know, the values that you have. I think extremities in the gym is also a form of distraction and a form of numbing, similar to drinking drugs for a lot of men. Because I see a lot of men who are anxious, depressed, completely low in self worth, self confidence is shot, and they replace it with extreme training. And what that eventually leads to is a lot of steroid use, a lot of, comparison, a lot of um, self hatred, and, you know, end up some of them take their own lives as well. And it can, it's one thing that a lot of people would look at them and think, oh God, they must be really depressed. They must be going through a really hard time. They look at them and think, Jesus, he's a fucking animal. He's got it all together. he's constantly training, constantly looking after himself. You're like, no, 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 you're not looking after yourself. Looking after yourself is having good health and a good balance. But extremities aren't healthy. And I don't think they should be promoted as healthy. But I do think they should be promoted as a test, a way to test yourself physically. There's nothing wrong with that. But it shouldn't be promoted as healthy as such. There's no real health benefit to it. But for example, running across Australia is a very fucking taxing thing on the body. Jesus Christ, I couldn't even run 5k in Melbourne, never mind run across Australia. So it's important to showcase as well the low points of that. The bits where he's collapsed and the bits where he's where he's suffering. Show that, because that's the truth. It's not toxic because you're not hiding anything. It's not like he's posting that, or he's posting video. I don't know the guy. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I doubt he's posting videos of him like running, just constantly smiling, and then getting across the finish line, buzzing. It's like, he's obviously suffering. He's suffering, and you can see that. So he's chose his suffering as well.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You choose your suffering. So he chose that. It doesn't mean you have to choose it. So this is the problem, like I said earlier on the podcast. Men develop other people's definition of success, and they develop other people's values. So if you have a problem with him, there's an underlying issue there, because you're looking at it from a lens of something in you is triggered from watching that. You feel low self-worth, you feel low confidence, and you don't know your values, you don't know the direction you want your life to go. So you're looking at someone else who does know the direction they want their life to go, and they do know what they want, and they've chose their suffering, and you're becoming envious, and you're becoming resentful of them. And I understand it. It happens. It's very common. It's very common, but it's draining, mate. Just draining on your mental and physical health being that way.
It really is, for sure. In the men's space as a whole, what do you like right now, and what do you want to see more of or less of?
I do like a lot of the shadow work. I think the shadow work's a very good thing. Defining your values and defining your direction in life is amazing, and setting goals and setting targets, and finding a group of people who are like-minded. That's amazing. It's great. But shadow work is very interesting, because it will highlight things in you that are fucking really ugly and you don't want to face, and you probably won't like the answer, and you'll kind of start to develop this complex of, my God, if I lived my whole life like that, and you'll find out things from childhood, from growing up, that you've developed behaviour patterns, and you've developed emotional responses, and reactions to certain scenarios. You'll find your triggers. You'll find why you feel the way you feel. You might even come to a conclusion that you don't even like the career you're in. You kind of go, fucking hell, I've been working at this career for 18 years and I don't even like it, And that's why shadow work, I think more shadow work would be great. But I also would love to see more balance. And what I mean is, as I said at the start of the podcast again, we've got a generation where it's either too soft or too hard. There's no just right, there's no balance. There's no balancing. It's always about, either soothing you and making you feel, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Sometimes you need someone to tell you, you know what, listen, it's okay, you're going through a rough time, but get up off your fucking arse and go and do something about it. And that's okay sometimes. But sometimes we don't need that. Sometimes we need someone to just say, listen, this is a shit time. Just sit with me and we'll go through it together. Yeah. But balance is so important. It's balance, and that's what people need to start promoting more, is balancing, by the way, not balance. There's no perfect balance, but balancing. There's seasons in life where you need to go hard. There's seasons in life where you need to pull back. There's times where you need to go all in. There's times where you need to pull and just take a rest and reset. And that's okay. What's wrong with that? As a society, we're just caught up in extremities. So yeah, that's what I want to see more of.
Tiarnan, it's been an absolute pleasure. If people have liked what they've heard, where is the best place to find you?
So you can catch me on Instagram and reluctantly use TikTok, Redefining the Alpha. Redefining the Alpha, and then we've got a YouTube channel as well, Redefining the Alpha. I'm starting to do solo podcasts, and I will also have some guests on hopefully in the future.